If you're familiar with the GFX system, you know the GF50mm F3.5 as the official Pancake lens. I see lots of people praise this lens for its size and quality, and of course its price, coming in at $1,000 MSRP. This is actually one of the lenses that I purchased for myself to use with my own GFX, but there is a better Pancake option that no one's really talking about, and it is the GF63mm F2.8. But before we get into it, massive shout out to Fujifilm for sending me this lens to test out so I can make a video for you guys. To jump into a brief technical comparison, here the lenses are lined up, and right off the bat we can obviously see that the 63mm is a bit larger than the 50. The 63 has a height of 2.8 inches versus 1.89 inches on the 50mm. Both lenses share the same filter thread size of 62mm, and the 63 is a bit heavier, weighing in at 405 grams versus 335 grams on the 50. However, I think that this weight is pretty indistinguishable, largely due to the compactness of the 50. It actually feels a bit heavier. And of course, I kind of find 70 grams to be not that large of a difference. The 63 has an aperture of 2.8, and of course the 50 has an aperture of 3.5. So I'm definitely gonna give the win to the 63 here. It actually makes a massive difference. But it also makes a difference that the 63 is a bit longer of a lens, so it makes the depth of field in the bokeh be a bit more extreme. And lastly, let's take a look at these lenses on my GFX 100S. I know it's an obsolete camera at this point with the GFX 100 out, but nevertheless, let's take a look at the size comparison on an actual camera. I found the 63mm an absolute joy to walk around with. As you can see, again, it is a pretty small lens, all things considered, on the GFX system. So far, I only own 3 lenses for the GFX system. It's the 110, the 120, and the 50mm. The 120 basically lives at my studio, and the 110 is basically my walk around lens, largely because I'm just not a fan of the 50mm. That being said, the 110mm is a really heavy lens. I don't mind most of the time because the quality is absolutely insane. In walking around with the 60mm for the last week or so, the size and weight makes it really easy to walk around with without sacrificing quality. I believe a solid street lens should be pretty compact, or at least in the GFX world, not huge. For example, the GF50mm is a phenomenal lens. The bokeh on that lens is probably the best on the entire system, but it's an absolute burden to walk around with. It's basically as long as my forearm. I definitely wouldn't choose this lens to be my walk around lens, at least most of the time. And we're specifically talking about city street photography, not driving somewhere, getting out and taking a few shots and getting back in your car. So the only negative thing I do have to say about this lens, although I don't really consider it to be a deal breaker, is the fact that when you focus, this lens does have an element that moves up and down. So I just have this on continuous focus, and as you can see, the lens kind of pops out to focus. But it's kind of annoying, and it's especially annoying when you're walking around and you have your lens set to continuous and it just starts focusing if you don't shut your camera off. As you can see, it's pulsing a little bit here, and if I catch it on the right object, it just kind of really goes to town focusing, but that's if you're pretty off with your focus. I also had the opportunity to walk around with the 45mm F2.8. It's pretty much in the same family with the 63mm F2.8. It uses similar optics and motor, but I actually purchased the GF50mm over that lens, mainly due to the fact that I wanted to get the 55mm 1.7. And while I understand 50 versus 55 is not very substantial, I figured that the super compactness of the GF50 would be a lens that I would use for like family gatherings or just when I wanted to travel really light. However, it just turns out that due to the quality of the 50, I don't really end up using it. I find it to be pretty subpar. In short, I find that it flares a lot, and while it is pretty sharp, it just doesn't hold up to the same quality of the 45 or the 20 to 35. It's a cheaper lens for a reason. So that being said, the 63, it just really wasn't on my radar, to be honest with you. I haven't really seen a bunch of people talk about this lens, and I wish that before I purchased the 50, I tried out this 63mm. So now you have a lot of my rhyme and reason behind my purchase choices for the GFX and what I kind of consider a good street lens. Let's take a look at some shots that I did take with this lens. So a bit of a side note, I'm typically a backpack guy when it comes to bringing around my camera and my gear, but I've wanted to try out a Sling for quite some time. And ironically, this company reached out to me and wanted to send me some products to show you guys. So first they sent me this Sling, and this bag's kind of cool. It has water bottle slots on the side, which is not super common in Sling bags. It also has a compartment on the back, which you could store some flat things like lens filters with cases and stuff like that. To open the bag, there is a buckle that you have to pull down as well as a magnet. It also has another pouch on the inside, and on the inside custom dividers which you can set up for your camera. I also love the texture and the color of the bag. It's also rain resistant. It has a handle on the top, and for the strap, it has padding, which is actually pretty comfortable. The only thing I don't love about this bag is the clip on the strap, and it's plastic. I wish that it was metal. It's also a little too easy to press. So that would be my only feedback. Oh, and also on the bottom, there is room for a tripod, which is pretty sick. Here, I just wanted to show you guys how this bag wears when you're walking around. So here's a quick rotation. And lastly, they sent me an air duster. So this is a pretty turbo air duster. As you can tell, it's pretty substantial. Sometimes I use my computer when I work out, at least have it with me, and I play some music on it, whatnot. It does tend to get a bit chalky because I chalk my hands. This actually comes in handy. I don't really use it for my camera, more so use it for my computer. It's got this really soft brush that's actually really, really nice. And this is really great for cleaning my computer. So I like it a lot better than spray cans. So I'd highly recommend this as well. I'll link to both the products below. Feel free to check them out. Full transparency, they did send me this gear for free to keep, just if I put it in a video for you guys, but they didn't tell me what to say, and I'm giving you my true opinion. So let's jump into Lightroom really quick and take a look at a handful of files. We're gonna definitely pixel peep, be a little extreme, but we're gonna get to the bottom of the quality of this lens. So first up, we have a picture of my dog Chief in the backyard, and obviously shot wide open at 2.8 for the sake of science here, shooting wide open. But yeah, a really pleasing result. Chief is clearly the subject of this picture, and the background has a really nice fall off. And if we zoom in, we're at 100% here. The eye was not the focus. If we stop down a bit and we maybe shot it like f4, I'm sure that eye would have been in focus, but I just really wanted to emphasize the background here. So yeah, but the point of focus was definitely his side of his face here, and we have some pretty extreme drop off of the top of his head and his ear leading into the background. The snout, super in focus, super sharp. Not really seeing any chromatic aberrations here. Overall, you know, I'm really happy with this image. I think this is definitely a nice look. Up next, we have a shot of the street sign, West 34th, 11th Ave. My point of focus was this 34. So zooming in at 100%, definitely an extreme drop off here. The bottom of the sign is very sharp. The 4 is also pretty sharp. Zooming into 200% further emphasizes the sharpness, but it also has a pretty quick fall off. Definitely see some chromatic aberrations here. We got some green, some magenta, and if we keep going, some more green. But we also have some nice depth of field as we move upwards towards the top of the sign. And this building here, I really like the contrast between the sign and the building. Definitely very pleasing, giving a lot of emphasis to the street sign. Same with the building in the back. And I think the chromatic aberrations here is not really too extreme. If we're looking at it zoomed out fully, you can't really see it. So overall, I think this is also a pretty nice look and pretty extreme depth of field. And here we have a picture of my dog Duncan. And I obviously had a little bit more time to take this shot and just focus in on the eye here. So the eye was the point of focus. And we can even see some fur here, really sharp. All of his gray hair, he's an old dog. Definitely really sharp and in focus. And of course his snout is also in focus. We have a little bit of chromatic aberrations here, but super slight. Nothing to really write home about. Nice depth of field between the side of his face and, you know, leading all the way to the other side. And if we keep going down, we'll see we have a little bit of teal green on his collar, but overall, and even like looking at the fibers of his dog bed, like really sharp. And again, enough separation between the dog and the background. I think this is pretty pleasing as well. And while we're riding the bokeh train, basically I took this image outside of the Barclays Center. I did shoot this at 1/200th of a second. In retrospect, I probably should have doubled it 1/400th, but nevertheless, this middle bike was my focus, and it's like a slightly soft, I think. Maybe it's just extreme, because this looks a little soft down here, but this looks sharp here. So just a really extreme image. I obviously took this to emphasize the extremeness, but if you want something in the artistic vein, this is definitely a nice look. It doesn't really tell you too much about where you are, but nevertheless, I think with such an extreme image, you do have some real sharpness here, despite being a bit narrow. Again, another street sign, different kind of street sign. Zooming in to 100% here, very sharp. I'm not really seeing, maybe it looks like a little bit of green here, but let's take a look. 200%, really sharp for sure. Definitely an impressive lens. Nice separation between the building and the back. Yeah, even the Barclays Center, a little soft, giving the real emphasis to the sign. And next we have this car shot. So overall, I like how the shot wide open, 2.8. I like how the foreground's very out of focus with these lines kind of leading right to the car. And at 100%, looks like, for the most part, most of this car is in focus. Front's maybe a little soft, but this is a bit pushed back. We zoom into 200%, we have some nice rusty rotors that this guy needs to take care of, but otherwise, I think this is a really nice result. There's not a massive blur effect on the background, but this is a pretty compressed scene. So, and then I took this image. I really loved the lighting as I was walking around, and basically I noticed I set my point of focus to this clock tower. So the building, not super out of focus, but enough. This is obviously not a telephoto lens, so we have a nice separation here between the top of this building and the clock tower. I think you could potentially crop it like this, and definitely have a bit more emphasis towards this clock tower. But zooming into this clock tower, definitely very sharp, and we do have a bit of magenta on the outline, but also this is the original. It was pretty in the shadows here. So yeah, overall really solid. You don't really notice anything weird when you're fully zoomed out either. So really nice result. And the street shot, so a lot of this, if we just zoom out a little bit, most of this image is in focus. So from this corner all the way to really this plane, this building was definitely where my focus landed. Light is not in focus, but pretty much this whole building, this whole series of buildings is in focus. The background, this is a little soft, but overall, due to some distortion here, this is a solid result. Even on this side, obviously, this building is really sharp. I'm not really seeing anything to complain about here. Looks like we got a bit of purple over here, but not a big deal. And lastly, we have this image. I shot this again to really emphasize the depth of field. So my focus was on this 454 lettering, and really nice result here. We have this bush in the foreground, super blurry. The top of the building, very blurry. The side of the building with the lamp, also pretty blurry. I wish I lined up the focus to be in the middle of these letters, but overall, zoomed out, looks pretty solid. I think this is a really nice result. This is definitely quality lens. I know I've said it a million times, but I'm definitely kicking myself for not getting this lens and getting the 50. Final thoughts on this lens. Like I've said before in this video, I wish I did not purchase the 50mm. I wish I purchased the 63mm instead. The bokeh is better. It's a bit sharper, and overall just a higher quality lens. While it does have a higher price point, I would rather pay the extra money and have a lens that I enjoy using versus kind of like a budget walk around lens that I don't necessarily love. And let's face it, now this is gonna make a couple people mad, but you don't put cheap tires on a Ferrari, right? So the GFX is a super premium camera. You want to make sure that the glass you're using definitely holds up to the quality of the camera. So I hope you enjoyed this brief review. If you are following along with my videos, let me know what you think of this quicker format, or if you'd rather see something a little bit more in-depth and longer. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe and all of that. I am hoping to get my hands on the GFX 100 II, and of course the 55 1.7. So stay tuned. And with that being said, catch you in the next video.